kingdom of Lunaria long flourished under the dominion of a benevolent monarchy. In many ways, the kingdom and its people had no way of knowing what it would be like to have the traditional roles of power turned upside down. The new king, Pemberton Wendover, and his queen, Lady Clare, were both young and extremely popular among their people, especially after the birth of their twin boys, Burton and Edward. The commoners saw the young royal family as a new beginning in the social fabric of Lunaria. There were promises of universal education and the easing of trade monopolies controlled by the 9 families. The death of King Pem Wendover and the disappearance of Queen Clare and their children ended in the destruction of the monarchy. Thus, the new age in Lunaria began its descent into chaos after centuries of relatively undisturbed prosperity. The plot which changed the course of history was not foreseen until the largely peaceful empire was thrown into turmoil. That plot was devised by a dark sage named Jalus Rufin, who had a long history of cruel and sadistic behavior. There were few in Lunaria who understood the nature and power of the sages, and so Rufin's appearance on the stage seemed sudden to them. Others, wiser perhaps, predicted his actions, but their voices went unheard until it was too late. In the year 32 NA, the 32nd year of the New Age, the land of Lunaria found itself on the verge of a civil war. Rufin's ascension to the power was swift after the king's death, and his absolute dominion over the great Council of 9 allowed him, in effect, to rule the land. There was great unrest. Against this threat, the political faction known as the Temperate, with the backing of the wealth of the secular order of Garama, managed a balance of power by joining with the old Communicate, which had served as the loyal arm of the monarchy that had acted as the trusted intermediary between the king and his people. The balance, as traditional sages were fond of saying, depended on 2 factors. For Rufin's part, he needed the ability of the Order of Garama under the direction of the Temperate to organize and influence the people. In addition, he had not yet been able to subvert the Communicate so that he might exert influence over the commoners. On the other hand, the Temperate was limited by Rufin's control over the council, which amounted to the control over trade within the empire. Without this flow of cash, there was only so much the Temperate could do to oppose the Dark Sage. How did the power of the Dark Sage come about? The traditional sages of Lunaria were of a long-lived race, near immortals, who were reputed to be among the most learned and wise, and who advised the monarchies of Lunaria and guaranteed the voice of the people in the affairs of state through the auspices of the Communicate. This situation had lasted for 1,000 years, or ever since the last Great War, which saw the overthrow of those who would use the forbidden technologies which had brought the land close to ruin. This legend was a popular and romantic vision and spoke much to the popularity of the young king and queen who were in favor of social change. This hope was in the minds of a people who pursued a relatively benign agrarian life, free of the tyrannies of the violent past. With their passing, the people were not prepared for the impositions of a regime that promised much and delivered little while interfering in every aspect of their private lives. When the 2 factions of sages emerged at the death of the king, Lunaria was left on a knife edge between falling into the long and bitter ruinous civil war or compromise with the evil power of the Order of the Dark Sages. Jalus Rufin grabbed much of the power of the former monarchy by usurping the leadership of the military. He did this by corrupting and discrediting the most loyal and popular of Lunarian generals, General Elaine. He purged the officer corps and replaced the old officers with his own men, officers who were part man, part forbidden technology. This placed him in a position that few dared to oppose, though it made him many enemies. For 32 years, the Temperate struggled to peacefully negotiate a delicate balance of power between the opposing positions of the Order of Garama and the corrupt Council of 9 backed by Jalus Rufin. Many said under their breath that such a compromise was always a losing battle. At the end of the 32nd year of the New Age, as it approached, Jalus Rufin decided to risk civil war to enforce the sole dominion of the council over the Lunarian people and their Temperate advocates. The only thing that might stand in Rufin's way would be the return of a new king. With what he knew, Jalus Rufin considered this highly unlikely, especially the way the queen had departed the world through a one-way gate with at least one of her children. However, spymaster Edward Godwin, father to the unfortunate young king, had reason to hope otherwise as he sat under close surveillance in the ancient Wendover Palace. His good friend Sage Leandra, clandestine leader of the original Order of Sages, had informed him of the momentous events that he must prepare for, and one of his best spies, a retired Admiral Watchman, had alerted him to a meeting that was soon to take place. Several significant stories survive the times of these events. Excerpts from these stories describe the winds of change that blew across the land during this period. The adventure story of how the young queen arrived in Lunarian with an orange cat has charmed people for generations. The romantic story of how Nico, first officer of the Fortuna, and his wife Rebecca Ranapui helped defeat the plans of Jalus Rufin and is another popular tale. Finally, the story of Tess and Fitz and how they hoped to carry the future with them is not to be missed.